right. Today's lesson is about when respect is missing. Yesterday we talked about some things. What does it mean to show respect? And I said that respect is showing regard for the worth of someone or something. So not only do you have to respect things like your future car, making sure you change the oil in it and check the tire pressure, but you should also respect people. We also talked about respecting the environment, like picking up trash if you see it, or if you drop something, pick it up. That takes care of the environment, or like the girl that was in the picture feeding the birds. That's taking care of the environment, and also showing respect for property, other people's property, as well as your own property when you have your own place. Okay, so we talked about that. One of the important things that I talked about yesterday was learning to respect yourself, having that self esteem, feeling like you're worthy of something. And I know I've said this before that I really feel like every single person has been put on this earth for a reason. You just have to find your purpose. And I think that's like a goal that you should always have. Like, what is my purpose in life? And even me at my age, and I'm absolutely doing what I love to do, which is teaching and teaching the subjects that I love to teach. But, I'm always looking for, what is my purpose in life? Like, am I following through with what I was put on this earth for? So, that's an important part of respect as well. So today it says here when respect is missing, and unfortunately that is a case that there are cases all over about this. So it says teens who lie, cheat, or steal show little respect for themselves. Combined with their fear of being caught for negative actions, their behavior may lead to guilt and regret, as well as many other serious consequences. And I think when someone has like that guilt in them, they and regret, they start maybe misbehaving even more and getting in more trouble and more trouble. Me being a former elementary teacher, I saw that quite a bit as I was going through different grade levels and things. So it definitely does wear on people and sometimes even causes some people to get sick. So it says family members show love and concern for teens by setting limits and establishing guidelines and discipline that can help teens show respect for themselves and others. So remember how I said like adults are the people who, they're role models for us, and other people around you, maybe like aunts and uncles, teachers, even older brothers and sisters can be positive role models. And that's how we learn to be respectful, is in that way. It's easy to see when people fail to respect themselves or other people. Negative pressure from others, physical violence, and vandalism of property are just a few examples of lack of respect. Like, I was thinking a while ago that someone had gone into a graveyard and had knocked over a bunch of old gravestones and damaged a bunch of, like the floral arrangements that people put out there, or stealing them and things like that. So, that's an example of people who are not respecting themselves or other people. So something, I'm not sure why they would do something like that to try to hurt people, but some people do. Okay, so the next section is talking about stereotypes and prejudice. And it says when respect is missing, additional effects, stereotypes, and prejudice are often present. And that sentence right there is what I need you to write in your notes. When respect is missing, additional effects, stereotypes, and prejudice are often present. So write that down. And then here's the definition for stereotype, and you should have that in your notes already. A stereotype is a belief that an entire group of people fit a fixed common pattern, that they're all alike in certain ways. And I know when people hear me talking about teaching middle school, they're like, oh my goodness, how can you do that? More power to you, or good luck with that. Or, it's just like they stereotype middle schoolers, but they don't see what I see, which is the positive things that middle schoolers do, and that middle schoolers are or can be very respectful and hardworking and have good work ethics, and they have goals for their futures. They don't get to see the positive side that I see. So I make sure I tell them about it all the time. Okay, so the next section says for stereotyping, persons with disabilities, older men and women, and homeless people often are stereotyped. Some people fail to see these others as individuals. Instead, they see them as a group sharing the same characteristics. So stereotyping, in my opinion, I guess it's not super bad, but then when you move into the next section, when we're talking about prejudice, when it becomes a prejudice, then sometimes it can get pretty sketchy and pretty rough. So stereotypes often lead to prejudice, which is what I was just talking about. When people dislike or hurt others because of their differences, they show prejudice and an unfair or biased opinion, which you can have your own opinion. Don't get me wrong with that. I do want people to always have their own opinions. But if if it turns into something mean and ugly, I guess is where, it's like a fine line. You've got to, just be careful, be respectful, try to mind your manners in situations like this, I guess is my best advice for this. Okay, so it says here, I lost my spot for a second. Oh, often it's a judgment against a person or group made with lack of knowledge of the correct facts. For example, prejudice may be directed against people because of their race, religion, gender, male or female, or economic status. Like rich people, poor people, sometimes they get grouped into those categories. And yes, even rich people have prejudice against them. Sometimes people think, well, rich people are all snobs, so there you go. But I know some people who are millionaires, and they're like some of the nicest people I've ever met in my life. Okay, so a person's age or disabilities are also sometimes used as a basis for prejudice. So sometimes people think, well, that person's in a wheelchair, they may not have any kind of brain activities, they might not be smart at all, but then it's like they're like super smart. So that's where it gets to where, be careful with those situations. Don't just assume or have the prejudice, the biased opinion against someone just because they may have a disability, that they're non-intelligent or something. Okay, so rather than smoothing the path to common ground and understanding, prejudice causes people to distrust and hate without just cause. People who are on the receiving end of prejudice often have feelings of anger, frustration, and sometimes despair because they feel like they're being bullied. Some people act on these feelings. How do you want to be treated? That's how I always say, do I want to be treated like that? And then in turn, that's how I treat people, okay? So no doubt you want people to discover and respect who you are inside as a person. Okay, and then there's some tips on the side here about overcoming prejudice. The best way to overcome stereotype and prejudice is to learn more about the people's cultures, their community, people you come in contact with. So it says here to learn more knowledge about people's cultures, and maybe you can understand it more and not stereotype and prejudice against them. Identify problems with stereotypes and prejudice in your school and neighborhood and what causes these problems. Then try to work out a solution. I think sometimes when people complain about things or they build these prejudice, they don't know about doing, maybe coming up with a solution for the problem. So, I think that's important there for a tip. Identify languages that is offensive to people. I think that's important. Maybe you didn't know you were stereotyping or you were prejudiced against someone because of something that you said, the language that you said. But be careful with that. And then it talks about like removing graffiti that fuels the fire for prejudice. So that's basically the end of this section here. I wasn't sure if I told you to write this down or not. It's early in the morning when I'm recording this. So I wanted you to write teens who lie, cheat, or steal show little respect for themselves. I want you to write that in your notes. And then I also want you to write this sentence that says, when respect is missing, additional effects, stereotypes, and prejudice are often present. Okay, so that's the end of the lesson. Thanks for listening today.